Welcome, everyone, to the Addictstruth podcast. My name is Recovery Jon. Welcome for tuning in again. Excited for our guest today, Kate Garner. Kate, welcome in.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. You came out from Indy, right?
Fort Wayne.
Fort Wayne.
Yes.
Happy to have you. Excited to hear. Kate's blowing up on TikTok right now and YouTube as well. And I'm excited to hear more of your story. I came across your TikToks and instantly got grabbed by the way you talk. It seems like everyone else loves it. And this will be a good way to kind of hear more about your story. So let's start with, what's your sobriety date? I know you just celebrated 6 months.
June 22nd.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So you've been moving fast in the first 6 months. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very fast.
And I don't know, tell them a little bit about you. You could kick it off and, where you're from, little childhood, how your drinking started.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I was born and raised in Fort Wayne, Indiana, so lived there my whole life. As far as drinking, I really didn't start drinking until my senior year of high school. I had a drink a couple of times before that, but it's kind of weird because I never liked drinking. I always got sick. I didn't like the feeling of altering my mind at that point in life. So right after my senior year, I started drinking pretty heavily for a while, but not every day, nothing like that. When I turned 21, obviously I do feel like it escalated. Felt like I was drinking throughout the week, but again, not every day. For a long time, I preferred smoking over it. But looking back, it's just kind of crazy because I feel like I was always trying to alter my mind. I didn't recognize it at the time. Obviously, through sobriety, you come to the realization of a lot of things and go to the root of your problems and why you were doing the things you were doing. The reason how I became an alcoholic was postpartum. I struggled throughout my pregnancy as it was, and then I had a very traumatic birth, and it was immediate postpartum. I felt it was like an out-of-body experience kind of thing. I had never felt like that before, and I've struggled with mental health my whole life, but that was a completely different ballgame. So about 3 months in, I started drinking very heavily, pretty much every day. At the time, I didn't really realize it, why I was. I did think to myself one day, is this postpartum? I didn't want to dive into that. I didn't want to do the necessary things you had to do to stop drinking about it. Medicate myself in a better way, healthier way. A year in, I did have a mental breakdown. At that point, I was still drinking. I thought the meds would work, and they didn't. They did a little bit, but not enough. So it just spiraled from there.
Okay, so for the people that are listening that don't understand, even myself being a guy, I kind of understand. Can you define either a little more what it's like or what is exactly postpartum? Obviously, it's kind of depression, anxiety after having a child, correct?
Right, yeah. Extreme anxiety, extreme depression, a lot of anger. I felt like I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. I was extremely overwhelmed, didn't know how to deal with it. The only thing that calmed me down was primarily wine every night. I think the hardest part for me looking back, obviously depression and anxiety is terrible, but the anger I was experiencing and how I took that out on everyone around me, that looking back is really, really hard for me. I was married at the time, not anymore. So I have a lot of regrets in that. It wasn't fair. But again, the only reason, I think drinking made me even angrier. So no positives in my life at the time, it felt like, even though there was. So always negative, always had an excuse to drink. So postpartum is hard. I don't think it's talked about enough at all. So many women struggle with that. But I don't know if I would necessarily say it's a taboo subject at this point because it is so common, but it's still not talked about enough. And I don't think there's enough things out there to help with it, to give women a voice or make them feel like it's okay, we're going to do this. Like, you'll get through it. You feel stuck.
I can agree. I mean, as a guy, I only knew of it as like the obvious. Like, oh, that seems like a big, like, just chapter in your life, you know, but I've never been talked to or educated about it. I'm sure hopefully if I get to a point where I'm going to have a kid, I do. But I've always been one to kind of try to be empathetic and look at like what people are going through deeper. And I mean, I've always, as a guy, even like been like, damn, give girls respect because I mean, your body changes, your whole life changes. Then you have a human to, you know, which so does the husband, but it's different when it like really you made with your body that, you know, I can imagine how there's just feelings that are unexplainable, you know, and then the responsibility of it. And then like you're getting your body back and then the mental, your hormones. Like there's one thing I always had just a lot of respect for women that like, I don't go through all that and I couldn't see how that little things affect me. So I can't imagine my body changing my mind and my hormones. Now I have responsibility. Now my body's going back to normal. So I love that you talk about that because I don't think, kind of like addiction, there's a stigma. Like I haven't heard many people talk about it, you know, so I think it's big that you are. So then you start drinking, it gets worse, affects your husband, your family, you said, your life, obviously.
Right.
What was kind of the turning point for you? Or when did things kind of get bad enough that you were like, all right, this is probably going to have to change?
Yeah. It took a while. I wish that I had been able to identify it sooner. I think I realized that I had a problem longer ago before I admitted it. My turning point was probably April of 2023. Had decided to get a divorce. At that time, I had tried to stop drinking again for a month, which I had done twice. I only made it 20 days. So everything just kind of imploded. And that was already my coping mechanism. So I just continued that. I knew subconsciously at that point in time, like, why am I drinking about this? Why is this the only way? So, and then for a year after my divorce, like, so much, all the time. I was dating too much, and that included drinking, you know, every time. I wasn't going to go on a date if it didn't. So throughout the week, I was binging a few days out of the week, and then obviously on weekends. And if I didn't binge that night, whatever you want to call it, I was at least drinking a bottle of wine. So that year I knew the whole time, but I didn't want to give up my lifestyle.
And you said you tried to stop drinking. I think that's important, and it only lasted for a little. What was your plan stopping? Where do you think you relapsed? I think that's huge. You know, obviously you're making it now. You've made it over 6 months. What was that kind of chapter like, trying to stop just those 20 days or whatever it was?
I was never trying to stop forever. I was trying to learn how to drink responsibly. So, as a lot of people do. I thought after 30 days I could be the type of person that drank once or twice a week. But I think I knew in the back of my mind I was still going to kill a bottle of wine when I would, because I can't stop when I start. And I'm very self-aware of that. And so the first time I went 20 days, I think I would have made it a month had my marriage not been where it was. Again, I would have gone back to drinking. But when I moved out, when I got divorced, I lived with my mom for 8 months. And when I moved out, it was like, okay, I can drink how much I want. Nobody's watching me. Like, I don't have anyone to explain it to. I don't have anyone to answer to. So when I moved out, escalated it so much. And so for about 6 months, it was all the time. The second time I went, I knew I was an alcoholic. I had a journal entry actually beginning of April, calling myself an alcoholic in it, saying, I don't know how I got here. So I went 20 days and then I had a wedding to go to. Didn't know anybody there. And I was like, no, I can drink today. I'll go back to it tomorrow. No. No. It just started back where I left it. So.
And before we leave the postpartum discussion, how do you think women could go about it? You know, the resources that you found out now or ways to ask for help. You know, I think it's important for someone that's listening. Like, I could relate to that. What would you suggest? Someone that's come through it, struggled with it, now you're doing better. Mm-hmm. What do you think they could, what would be your advice to them?
Obviously, go to your doctor. I just didn't want to. At the time, I had such a traumatic birth with my doctor, I didn't find another one, so I didn't have an OBGYN to go to, and I didn't go to my general practitioner, but realistically, just go to either. You know, tell them what you're experiencing. Therapy, one-on-one therapy. You can really just dive into everything, and they're going to help you realize what's going on and help you pinpoint, okay, why am I doing this? What got me here? You know, I would say those are the two main ones for me. There are postpartum support groups, which is amazing because you're going to feel validated because you're going to see these women are going through what you're going through too. So I would say those three things for sure.
That's important to get out there because it hit me. I was like, I want to go back to that quick because that's the important thing is now they can relate. What did they do? Mm-hmm. So you do that. You obviously go back. You realize, all right, I can't do it on my own. Like you knew you're an alcoholic, and I love that because people ask me all the time, like, why didn't you get sober? And I'm like, oh, I knew I was an addict. I was like, I just didn't know how to get sober. I wanted it, but for 10 years I'd try different things and nothing worked.
Right.
So then you go back to drinking. What did the next rock bottom look like, and what was your next steps to try to get help?
Well, after I went back to drinking in April, then it really, really took off. I had the most extreme depression and anxiety. I think the worst part for me was I was convincing myself that my meds were working, and that's just who I was. They're working as much as they can. This is me. I thought to myself, I'm just going to keep drinking for the rest of my life. So many people do it. It's all right, you know? I started making a lot of terrible decisions. I went from being like a fun and happy drunk to being angry all the time. And then it was just a vicious cycle. Like, I couldn't wait to have a drink in my hand. You know, after a long day at work, I'd kill a bottle in 30 minutes. You know, so there was something about that craving, like that first drink, you know, when it hits your stomach and you get that warm feeling. Like, I craved that every day because it was like an instant calm. And now thinking about it, it makes me feel sick to my stomach. But yeah, making terrible decisions, just the anxiety and the depression. I think it's important to talk about this because I don't know if everyone really identifies that's what's going on. The alcohol is creating this. It's a depressant. It's wreaking havoc on your mental health. And I knew it, you know. I would get home from work, I'd drink a bottle of wine, I'd feel decent for a little while, but again, like the irritability had started to show through while I was drinking. And then the next morning, bad mood. Every morning. I had to take my medicine immediately. Because if I went even 10 minutes without it, like, no, you don't want to know me. So.
I mean, I saw this funny quote or a doctor talking, and they were like, we have a society that has anxiety, so they drink to cure their anxiety, and the drinking amplifies their anxiety the next day. Mm-hmm. And then it's a cycle of like, well, now I have worse anxiety, so I got to drink to calm down. Were you ever a daily drinker, morning drinker, or was it kind of the after work binge drinking?
Depended on the day. I had reached a point in it where, you know, by chance I had this much left. I would kill it in the morning. Only if I didn't have my son, though. I was very conscious of that because I know the type of drinker I am. And once I start, I don't stop. And if I have to, I'm not very nice because I'm irritated. I want to keep drinking and I can't. Weekends and stuff, yeah. I'd start drinking as early as I could. So generally speaking, yeah, after work. But, sometimes I got off at 3 or 4. Sometimes I got off at 9:30. It didn't matter. So it had gotten to the point where I was hiding it from people. Like, I would have a bottle of wine if it was early-ish before 5 o'clock. And a lot of times Mac would get dropped off to me. So I would have that bottle of wine. I'd drink a glass. I would hide the bottle until after they left so that they didn't think I'd already had one. So there's your sign.
Yeah. And have you ever been arrested?
Never been arrested.
What about homeless?
Homeless?
Yes.
No, never homeless.
Okay.
I almost got a DUI one time. Still unsure of how that didn't happen. My teeth were red, and I had an almost empty bottle of wine on the passenger side. It was dark out. I was weaving in and out of traffic. Looking back, like, wow, okay. But it was a Friday night. I don't know what the cop was thinking, but
I think it's important to say because I had one guy, a sponsee, one time I was bringing to a rehab, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know, like I never been to rehab," or like, he's similar to you, like a dad. He was married, wasn't homeless, wasn't getting arrested, and he was like, "What are they gonna get out of my story?" And I was like, "Just sit and watch and shut up and tell your story." And he said it, and the first 3 people that raised their hand were like, "I couldn't relate to your story more," and that's what I love about this podcast. It's like, last guy was Mike, and he was homeless 7 years in Kensington, the worst open drug market in the world.
Okay.
And then you. But I think, not to give anyone more credit, but it's so important to show both because, like, no shit, if you're homeless, you're an addict, you need some help.
Right.
But how many people in our society in America are living like you were, that are a good mom, that are just, like, functioning, like, making money, but they're killing themselves, they don't feel good inside. And I think that's a huge thing that needs to be talked about because it's, to me, that's more sad. I've been the person in a jail cell and stuff, and it's kind of easy. It's like, no shit, I need help. Like, I'm in a jail cell.
Yeah.
But I love what you do,
Yeah. I think it's important to point out the functional alcoholics, the parents, the ones that are drinking for all of this stress. I mean, becoming a parent is one of the most stressful things you're ever going to go through, And for me, everything became an excuse. The hard part for me, well, one of the hard parts is my son is autistic. So when he got diagnosed, the whole process leading up to it, I knew something was wrong in my heart. Like I just did. It's just when you're a mom, it's different. And constant stress about it. Just what's going on? How do I do this? Created a lot of tension in my home life. The whole back and forth. I think so. Maybe you don't. Like, but we got to get through this. We gotta check it out. So I'm so thankful that I did. When I did, getting him diagnosed young was a game changer. But it escalated my drinking. My mind was going a million miles a minute at all times. Obviously, the drinking didn't help that. But, yeah, the diagnosis process was very, very hard. And I was like, this is a good excuse. Like, look at what I'm going through. Wouldn't you drink about that? Like, of course it's hard. No, people don't drink about these things. Like, I just really struggle, and I've said that before in my TikToks. I really struggled to understand how somebody wouldn't, So therapies controlled a lot of my life, a lot of my ex-husband's life. The constant, like, guessing game, like, what is this going to mean? Am I ever going to be able to stop drinking and deal with this in a better way? It wrecked me, I'll be honest. Like, there's some people out there that can accept it immediately and move forward. And it's like, that just wasn't who I was at that point in time. So there's disappointment in myself there, for sure. And it wasn't fair to him. It wasn't fair to anyone. I struggle with that. I think I always will. There's a lot of memories I don't have. So, you know, you ask me specific questions that most moms would know. I don't know. I've had to go to my ex-husband with questions. And there's no worse feeling as a mom to not know the answers. So it makes me extremely emotional to think about. But we got him to where he is today. And that is the best feeling. If I hadn't caught it, if we hadn't done this, where would he be? Where would I be?
I think how there's so many mothers probably that are going to hear that and are exactly in the same shoes as you. And I know just a week or two of conversing to get you out here, you know, I see now how amazing a mom you are. Just like, oh, I got to go. I got to do this. We'll talk later. We'll schedule this. That's a cool thing about this is to see someone's growth. And, you know, that's part of our amends and things you are working on, going to work on, but you're doing already. It's been amazing to see, you know, the person you are today. And it's weird for me to hear the people that I don't know those stories, because now I just know you as today. And like Mike, I knew him as today, not a homeless guy in Kensington, and all the other guests.
Right.
So let's talk about now. I mean, first let's finish. Where did you, I know, I've heard your TikToks, but the people I don't. So you have that last rock bottom. You woke up, I can't do this anymore. What did getting sober look like for you?
I had been thinking about how to stop for a while. I did come to the realization because I would think to myself, you don't need to drink today. You're not going to drink today. You're working until 9:30. Just go home, go to sleep. It didn't matter. I left work and it was like clockwork. Like, all right, I'm stopping at the liquor store. My car basically drove itself. Like, it was just routine. So I knew I couldn't beat it myself. And the morning after my breaking point, this had been happening to me a lot, especially when I would drink way too much. Like, it happened when I drank anyways, but when you reach that point, I would have loved to have known what my blood alcohol content was. That morning, extreme depression, extreme anxiety. I didn't want to be here anymore. Like, I knew that I was just going to continue this life and it was going to suck. And so I had mentioned to my ex-husband a couple of times, like, I think I need help. You know, maybe I should go to a meeting. He was supportive, but like to an extent, you know, like what are they supposed to say? Like, you have to get there yourself. So he dropped my son off. I hate saying this story, but I do think it's important. Dropped my son off. I had already been crying. It was a beautiful summer day. And I closed every blind in that house and laid on the couch and cried all day long, handed him his iPad. And I had been reeling on it. Like, do I do detox? Okay, that's 3 days minimum. Like, I got to tell everybody. I have to have somebody to watch Mac. Like, you're not going to be able to really get a hold of me, like, stuff like that. So, and then I decided not to do that. And I was looking up rehabs and I was like, I know there's outpatient rehabs, but I don't think I would have stuck to it. I just know myself. And 30 days away, like, no, I couldn't do it. I know I would have walked out. I can't not see Mac like that, even though endgame, this is for your kids. Like, I can't miss that much. I've already missed too much of his life. Like, so I couldn't do it. And AA, I looked up meetings. I had no idea what I was doing. I was Googling, you know, and I came across like the schedule for it in Fort Wayne. Did see that there was a meeting that night at the church I grew up in, which I talked about before. I was like, yeah, like that's a sign. I knew it. And called my mom and I was like, hey, I need you to come watch Mac. And tonight, can you do it? And she had stuff to do and she was like, oh, I really can't do it tonight, you know, whatever. And I like started crying, which I totally understand. You have a life, you know, I'm suddenly asking you to babysit. Started crying and she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I need to go to church. And she was like, oh, okay, you know, yeah. And she was like, what time? And 7:00. yeah, so she was like, is there mass at that time? And I was like, it's just like, it's like a meeting. Like, I just need to go to it, and I'm like fumbling over my words. And she was like, okay, whatever, came, watched him. I did not tell her where I was going, what the meeting was. She knew where I was going, but she didn't know what the meeting was. And she didn't ask when I got back. I think she probably thought she'll tell me if she wants to. And then I didn't go to another meeting. I was planning on going the next Sunday, and then the holidays and everything, like that meeting got canceled. I tried to go again on the 4th of July, no meetings. I was white knuckling it for sure. But yeah, like I knew going into that meeting it was going to be one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I wanted to believe I was going to stick with it. But I didn't know, which is why I didn't tell anybody. Walking in and saying, hi, I'm Katie, I'm an alcoholic for the first time, like just wrecked, hysterical, thinking back on it, I was in such a terrible place. Saying that out loud for the first time there's no feeling to compare it to, you're accepting defeat at that point. So I left there knowing I was never going to drink again. I knew it. So yeah, that was the start of it. And
love to hear that at the beginning of a new chapter.
Yeah.
And what was because you've told me that like you just said, you got upset. What was the reception? Like right away you had support, people came up to you after the meeting?
Oh yeah. It was an all women's meeting. Like I've never felt more welcomed in a room from the start ever before. People were talking to me, they were listening. After, I had a few people come up to me and, introduce themselves, go from there, and just super supportive. And I was like, this is a community immediately. Like, these women have each other's backs. You can tell. So
it's important because the reason I asked to probe that question, because anyone that's scared to go, that was me too. I was like, I'm going to walk in a room of random ass people and just say, I'm an addict. No way. Mm-hmm. And then when I went, I was like, wait, that's the most cared for I felt addiction-wise, my whole life. Like, these people get me.
You're understood.
Exactly.
Immediately.
Yeah, so I think that's important for the people that they're scared to hear to go, because those are the people that are going to help save your life, and they're the only people probably in the world that can really relate to what we're going through.
Yep.
Okay, so then now you got the sobriety rolling, your first meeting, you start hitting some more meetings. What does the next, first couple months look like? When was the first time you posted? That's going to be a big...
First time I posted was the 4th of July. That one didn't get very much attention, as it shouldn't have. But second one was day 14. Mm-hmm. That was a long video. These videos were for me. Obviously, now I'm looking at it as this was meant to help people. There's a reason why this is happening. I wanted to be able to look back at the beginning and see how awful it was. And, I didn't know how long I was going to make it. I knew in my heart I wanted to. I wanted it, But, yeah, so to be able to look back and see, look how terrible this was. Do you really want to go back there? Because I felt as though it was just going to continue to be a vicious cycle. Like, I would probably have stopped drinking, started again, made it even worse, wanted to stop again. Like, it's a part of it sometimes, It's not always easy to stop and stay at that point. Relapse can be a part of recovery. I don't want it to be a part of mine. So I work really hard at that every day. I consciously think to myself, do not go back there. You won't make it. So that's kind of where I was at with that.
Now, that's something I want to touch on, because there's two parts of that. The part where you didn't plan to get here, because I know we're both content creators, and a lot of times, I tell people that's God. I literally just tried to inspire maybe one. I never thought I would be getting the amount of messages I get today, views, a book. I never planned any of this. I just planned, all my friends are dying, I'm going to start posting, hopefully someone reaches out for help. That was all I had in mind. So I love that you talk about that too, that it was just for you, kind of a diary journal thing, and now you're reaching millions.
Right.
Question is, how has it helped you, or has it helped you hold you accountable. Because I know for me, there's times I probably maybe would have relapsed. And I know now at least people lean on me. So it's like it kind of made it more weight on my sobriety.
Yeah. The amount of people I have helped is motivating in itself. I think to myself, I'm staying strong. Mac is my first. I'm sober for Mac. I'm sober for me. Having people message you and say, I'm on day 6, I'm on day 14, your videos got me here. I'm sober because of you. That feeling is unmatched. I'm helping people prevent themselves from getting their life to the point mine was at. So it's huge. And my posts are journal entries. They recommend you journal. And I do every once in a while, like on paper, but these are my journal entries. These are my feelings. This is how hard it is today. But the next day, like, okay, it's easier. Like, it's just a process, showing people the rawness of it and how hard it can be, but how good it can be. That's an amazing feeling. And seeing where I've gotten in over 6 months, I'm a different person. I never thought I could be this person. So I want to show people they can too. It's just a really good feeling.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's the one thing I want to say. If you haven't seen her, check her out, because I commend you for just the open rawness. I think that's why your account has grown so fast. You help so many people. You've been so successful at this. It takes a lot to be that raw. And I'll tell you one thing, I didn't start posting until I was 1.5 years sober. I was kind of like, I did care what people thought. I think I was trying to just get my own mind right and stuff. And it takes a lot to be vulnerable, to show people, like, I don't even know how long it's going to last. I'm on day 20, but here's where I'm at. And I think that's why people can relate so much to you, because, like, just so raw. So I commend you for that. And the content is amazing. I love it.
I think, like, I don't edit my videos, my journal entry videos. I press play and I start talking. And sometimes, like, I can't script my videos. Some people can. Like, that will not work for me at all. I talk as I think it. And some of it's really, really hard to listen to. But some of it's really amazing to listen to. And I don't know, like, it's hard to explain the feeling. I was so anxious after my video went viral. Like, I didn't think anyone I knew was going to see it, because it was for me. I'd never used TikTok. Nobody follows me. That's how that works, right? No. So then people started seeing it. Actually, majority of people found out I was an alcoholic because of TikTok. So, which was fun. I wish I had done that a little differently, but can't go back. And I don't think anyone's mad at me. Maybe they are, but they never told me. So, yeah, it's gotten to a point where I never thought it would. And now I'm like, everyone knows that I know. And most of them have probably seen my videos and see me in the worst points, which is like, well, this speaks volumes about who I had become and how hard this is. And how hard it is going to be hard, but you get to such a good place. It's worth it.
Absolutely. And what can people expect from your TikTok lives? How often do you post?
I do my journal entry posts like every few days. I was doing it like once a week, and then people wanted more, so I was like, all right, I can do that. And then I do lives pretty much every day, and I look at them as a meeting. Like, I'm on here talking, you guys are asking me questions. I can give you as much information as I can. I'm not supposed to give advice, so like I can't dive too far into it. But the nice thing about it is there's people in there that have been sober for way longer than me. So if somebody has a question and I can't answer it, they can. And so I think that's why I look at it as a meeting. You ask me a question, I'm more than likely going to answer it. So, but that's just who I am. So.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes to just the recovery community on TikTok. Like, I didn't even know about like sober people, like, especially like I started 5 years ago, so like there wasn't too many. Mm-hmm. And like you, like on the live, it's so cool for me to sit back and see just that someone like say something, maybe like, I never really dealt with a spouse. Like, can't tell you, I don't really know. I never got married. And then other people like, oh, I dealt with this. And it's like you have a full blown virtual meeting.
Yeah.
Just people helping people.
Yeah. Because there's some people that don't want to do AA.
Mm.
This is an option for you. Like, you don't want to go to a meeting? All right, get on here and talk to me. Get on here and talk to a few hundred people about it. And it helps. I can't, it's overwhelming sometimes. There's a lot of comments. I can't answer everything, which is hard for me because I'm like trying to scroll and I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, it's a good option for those that don't want to do AA. And like I said, I do them pretty much every night. Every once in a while, I need a night. But I have grown to love helping people in this. So I almost feel like my day's not complete unless I do it. So
it's amazing. And people are very grateful for it. I know. What are some of the challenges you've been seeing now? Like, so you have all this going on. Now you're posting. Now you got this big account. We're going to get to the more good. But what are some things, like, because you are so raw, if people haven't seen your content, what have been some things in early sobriety that have been, like, a challenge?
Early sobriety, you're going to have withdrawals. Well, you might not. But a lot of people have withdrawals. And there's a variety of different withdrawals you can have. And just because this person had all of them doesn't mean you're going to. For about, like, 6 to 8 weeks, I was not okay. But you're putting poison in your body for years at a time. Like, you have to give it time to heal. And it's just the part of the healing process. And so withdrawals, I had the shakes, dizziness and nausea, fatigue. The worst fatigue, I was a mom, like, and I didn't sleep for a year, but this fatigue was like different. So that part was really, really hard. My emotions were high. My intelligence was low. It felt like my mind was, it was hard. I was trying to get it right, but some days, it's just hard. So those were the main ones. I had a few others, but they weren't as bad. So, then you get to a point where it's like, okay, the physical withdrawals are gone, but let's try to handle these emotional issues in a healthy way. So I went to therapy every week, and it has helped me tremendously to be able to go in there and be like, yo, I'm having a terrible day. I want to drink. And these are my feelings, etc. So that helped me a lot. But, it's an adjustment phase. You're creating a new life for yourself. There's going to be an adjustment phase. So, but now the adjustment is easy. And I love being sober. So
there's something I heard once. I don't know if it's true or scientifically proven, but I heard this in rehab that however long you drink or use, it takes half that amount of time for your brain chemicals and like your personality, your brain to come fully back. So for instance, me, I used for 10 years. I'm coming up on 6 years sobriety. So maybe just this year, I'm fully back to who I was or just getting there. So I think that's important to say that. I mean, I know myself, I plan to kidnap the CEO of my rehab a month out because they messed up some financial things with my parents. And I should have told them I'm going to go ski mask, tie him up with some guys and take him out. That's not right. Like, and that's scary that's emotionally, I was sober. I was 40 days sober. Mm-hmm. But I was so emotionally immature. That's where I was still. I was still,
right.
Gangbang and drug addict from 4 years ago. So I think it's important to talk about a lot. And I like that you said that. So now let's talk. You're rocking, you're sober, you're posting where, I know some, but how is like relationships improved, being a mom, a better mom improved, your relationship with your ex, I understand is healthy. Mm-hmm. How did getting sober help that stuff?
Yeah, so my relationship with Mac has complete 180. Like, I'm calmer, he's calmer. I'm able to talk through things instead of just lashing out and getting upset and pouring a drink about it. So I've just become more present. Before I was like so disassociated and just poor me, like, why is this my life? That kind of stuff. So, which is hard. It's hard to admit these things because it's your kids and knowing like how you affected them. Thank God I stopped when he was 5. the reason why I stopped, part of the reason why I stopped was because my earliest childhood memories were at 5. And I didn't want him to remember me like this. Not saying he won't have any memories, but the hope is that he won't. And so our relationship is just, everyone has days as parents, but overall it's so much better. As far as my ex-husband, like, yeah, I'm not lashing out at him. I don't blame him every day anymore. Because realistically, when you do that self-evaluation, like, okay, I was the problem. Not that he was completely, everyone plays a part, but realistically, like, I was responsible for the downfall of our marriage, and I know that. I have a lot of regrets. He took it and never made me feel like a piece of shit, even though I was projecting and doing that. I wasn't ready to look at myself. Alcoholics, narcissists, kind of pretty common. That's who I had become. And now, like, able to communicate effectively without bringing the past into everything and just, like, looking at the future and letting go. I work a living amends with him, and I know he sees it. And it's the kind of relationship with your ex that's ideal. You would want this. Be able to become friends and co-parent effectively and just be okay. So my relationships with other people, so I've isolated a lot. I won't lie. I felt the need. I can't be put in certain situations right now. It's gotten better at 6 months, obviously. But for a while, it was like, no, I can't be in that situation. I can't do this. Like, you guys can drink responsibly. I can't. So, like, I just can't go, which was hard. But, like, I let go of 2 friendships. I made that decision. And it was the best decision for me in my sobriety. I think you learn in sobriety that there's a lot of relationships that aren't serving you. And I didn't want to relapse, and some things, like, are a huge trigger for me. And if I know, like, certain relationships are going to be a trigger for me, I can't do it. And so letting go of those was good. And with my family, like, I think it's gotten better. I've had to work through some things and move on, which I think has helped me with my relationships with them. And just, being a drunk, like, you're lashing out. Like, it's everybody else's fault for me. That's what it was. And I felt that I could just say what I wanted to say because that's how I feel, right? I chose to be angry in a lot of situations and retaliation to a lot of things, and that's not okay. There are healthier ways. It affects you mentally, too, when you're, like, acting that way towards others, regardless of the situation. And I realized that was a huge part of it for me. So, yeah, I mean, it's looking up, which is all I can ask for. So.
Yeah, one day at a time. And I think that you said it perfectly. I didn't realize what I was doing at the time by posting, but I was doing a living amends to the people around me. I was proving that I was doing better. I was being vulnerable. I was helping others. And I was committed, like you are, to being a better mom, sister, brother, husband, whatever, daughter, wife, ex-wife. And people get to see that, because I think when people isolate with, like, the anonymous part, and I'm not going to tell anyone I was an alcoholic, they don't know. They knew you were. I always tell people, like, no, you were shitty to your family. They know. It's better for you to be honest and be like, I know I messed up. I am sober. I do go to AA, NA, whatever, and I'm working on myself. So I think that's a huge living amends you're making to everyone, and it takes time for that stuff to grow. So now I know you have over 100,000 followers on TikTok, correct? Do you know the number today? I was going to look, but it's going up fast.
Yeah, it's almost 120.
120. And you're also working on YouTube as well, correct?
I just started YouTube, yeah.
Okay.
It's foreign to me.
Me too. I'm still learning it.
Yeah.
Do you know what you're going to post there yet? Do you have plans for that?
The goal is to get to a point where I'm posting, I don't know if they would necessarily be longer videos, but maybe more in-depth videos. I'd also like to dive into like kind of just who I am as a person. I'm a mom of a child on the spectrum. I'm sober. I'm a hairstylist. I'm more than just sober. And I do think it's important to sobriety first, absolutely, but it's important to acknowledge that you're other great things too. So, and I've had people, say to me like, why don't you talk about the other aspects of your life? Why do you only focus on sobriety? Well, right now that's what it is. So, but realistically, like if I talk more about myself and like more about being a parent of a child on the spectrum, which is incredibly hard, so more people can relate, I'd love to do that. So obviously, like I said, helping others is like a huge passion of mine now. So I can help people in sobriety, but also other ways.
Awesome. And what is the at YouTube?
At Recovery with Katie, RCVRY.
Check her out. TikTok is at Kate Garn.
Kate_Garn.
Garn.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so guys, go follow her. Before we get to our last three questions, what are some of your future plans? Do you have any yet? I know this is all built really fast for you.
Mm-hmm.
She's wearing the Recovery sweatshirt. You might be coming back out with that. I know a lot of people ask you for it.
Right. I did a soft launch of it and had quite a few people buy it. I'm just ironing out the details of that. So soon. That's the goal for within this year, is to start that. Just real quick, like for me, recovery, you can be recovering from so many different things. You don't just have to be a recovering drug addict or a recovering alcoholic. You can be recovering from postpartum. You can be recovering from divorce. You can be recovering from mental health issues, because even if you may struggle with it, you're still recovering every day. You're trying to make the difference in your life. Like, that's why I like it. You're not just sober, you're recovering. So that's a big part of it. Goals have always been hard for me. It was hard for me to follow through. So I'm kind of trying to retrain my brain with that and be like, it's okay, you can do it, but I have to also accept that some goals may not be achieved, and I can't let that take over my life if I don't. So long run, like trying to figure out, this year I'd like to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life, what I want to focus on, and be able to pinpoint it. Obviously, the goal is to help reach more people, bring more people to sobriety as well. So, and just continue to be a better mom.
Perfect. Well, I'm excited to see where you go. I know you got big things going to happen for you. You can tell already.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to our final 3 shot questions, quick, from the heart, whatever comes to mind first. Number 1, who are you staying sober for today?
Mac.
Love it. He's a lucky guy.
Yeah. And me.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone I'm helping. So, but first is Mac. It'll always will be.
Nice. Love it. What do you think when you're having a rough day? What is one of your go-to sayings, quotes, something you cling on to when you're like, I need some motivation here to get through this?
I mean, I like the quote, it's never too late to be who you could have been. Mm-hmm. So I always wonder who I could have been, but now maybe I can find out. So
I love it. I've never actually heard that one. That's a good one. Yeah. I knew growing up I used to practice my autograph all the time. I thought it would be a Yankee. And now I'm signing books. So it's like, don't give up on yourself yet.
Yeah.
What would you say, you could look in the camera if you want, to someone struggling today that just needs either advice or words of motivation on what to do?
I would say it's possible. I will say this. The one thing I don't like when people say is, if I can do it, you can do it. I don't think it's right to compare. Everyone's situation is different, but you can do it. Don't compare yourself to others. You can get there. You will get there. It just depends on timing. And it's worth it. I hope that shows through in what I'm doing and what other sobriety influencers are doing. It's important to realize, it may be hard, but you will get there. And it's the best feeling. So.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming out here. Appreciate you. Excited to see where you go from here. Kate, Garner, thank you. You're killing it, and wish you the best. Hopefully we can do a round 2 of this another time and follow up with you and see where you're at.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much. Guys, go follow Kate Garner on TikTok, YouTube, and thank you for checking in for another Addictstruth podcast. Recoveryjon, sponsored by Still Behavioral Health. If you need help, reach out for help anytime. We love you, and God bless.